I divide the renovation up into 3 sections just to try to simplify. So, and if you've done a renovation, you'll agree this is like total simplification and not at all like it's a lot more challenging than what I'm going to make it sound like right here. But so number 1 is obviously planning and demo. Number 2 is utilities. And number 3 is paint and finishes. So very simplified, right? Makes it sound really easy. But it helps me if I divide it up like this and I look at, okay, what do I want my end date to be? And then I go backward from there. So I have to have the finishes and paint done by here if I want to close here. And then utilities, I got to have those done. And so I get my dates set up. And of course, I always use pencil when I'm penciling in dates because they can change, from week to week sometimes. So if you divide it up into 3 sections, it kind of helps you think about it much more simplified. Doesn't mean it's easy, but it can be very simple. I'm going to try to fix this note section on my computer. So planning first. I know I've been in some renovations. I've been mixing with investors now for 4 years. And I know the temptation, because I've done it myself, to speed, because time is money, right? The longer you hold a property, you've got your financing, you've got your interest building, the longer or the more money you're losing. So every day I calculate how much interest and everything I'm paying on a daily basis. And I let the contractors know if you're late, this is in your contract that you're going to be paying me. You're going to help me with my holding costs, because my holding costs and on the bigger properties, it might be $500 a day. One of them was like $571.39 or something like that every day that I would lose. And so I'm like, I would tell them that when we sign the contract, and I'll show you won't show you, but I'll tell you about the contract when I get to that part. But planning first is important, and trying not to speed through the planning part. If you plan correctly, when you get to the other parts, you can speed then because you'll have everything set up. And so I had to learn this the hard way. Ask me how I know. Nobody likes to backtrack. Like when I say nobody, I mean the contractors. They get irritated if they have to backtrack. I get irritated if I have to backtrack. If I'm not aware of something, or we talk through, the HVAC guy and I talk through this, and we go, okay, this is how it's going to have to be. The runs are going to have to be here. And do we have everything? We got a a vent for every room. We got the runs lined out. Yeah, everything's good. And then, if there's something that's forgotten and we have to backtrack later after we put up walls and after we've done all the utility work, then that's good, frustrating, and nobody likes to do that. So the more you can plan in the very beginning and create a visual for the changes that you're making on the property. It might just be graph paper and your own pencil, but if it's going to be pretty complicated and you're going to submit this to the municipality, then you're going to need an architect. So I work with Elizabeth Pankey. She's an excellent architect. And we have our designer meeting when I first get the property with my designer, Sandy Rubin, and Elizabeth Pankey, myself. And we go through what we're going to need. Sometimes I'll have a contractor there as well to give his input. I have a couple that are happy to do that for me. And then we create a very clear picture of where we're going. And then we show that whenever I do my contractor interviews and I'm getting bids for the utilities, I show this to the electrician, HVAC, and the plumber. And I say, do you foresee any problems with this here, with this bathroom remodel? Do you see any problems? And sometimes the electrician will call out something, or the HVAC guy, and then I have to get them together and kind of talk, okay, how are we going to fix this? Your run is right in the way, or, the electricity or the plumbing is in the way of the run. And then we have to figure that out. So this takes time. And I used to chafe at that, where I'm like, oh, this is taking too much time. Let's just start, and then I get myself in trouble. So it's always better now. I just lay it all out, and I have everybody kind of not sign off on it physically, but, verbally, these are the gentlemen I've chosen to work on the house. They all agree this is going to work. And then we finally start. So I might take 3 weeks or a month while they're demoing the house and taking the trash out of the house. I'm doing all of this. And then once we know which walls we want down, then we bring our demo guys in. And
So if you do, so 3 to 4 weeks, how much, if you have a property that's an escrow to buy, and everything's lined up, you're going to buy it. Do you try and get this planning started kind of before you actually even own the house
oh yeah,
to help with
yeah.
that?
I bring the designer and Elizabeth in first. As soon as I can, I get them over there and we can walk around all the tables and chairs and all that. That doesn't bother us.
So even
Um,
though it's 3 to 4 weeks, if it's a 4 week close, like you may have the ability to be ready day one when you purchase the house to get off up and running.
yeah, and that's ideal. Sometimes they're occupied and you really can't do that.
Mhm.
But when they're not occupied and they're vacant, then and the owner is allowing you to put the lockbox on, then yeah, that's the best way to go. So jump on it, get that part done first before you even buy it. And then you've got the demo guys and the clean out guys ready to start as soon as closing happens.
So tell me a little bit more on like the daily, you said the temptation to speed and every day you're calculating on a daily basis. Like like you used to just want to go, 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 go because of that fear. Um, was there like an example or like a story that you have where you just screwed something up? Pardon my French, but you just like finally you were like, wait a second, I have to plan now. Like how did you get to that conclusion?
Hey guys, for those of you that are local to St. Louis, I wanted to make sure you knew about an amazing resource that we have to help do some extra deals. You can email our team at deals@3doors.com. And just so you know, we do deals with other investors all the time. Like it's been hundreds and hundreds over the years, and we've averaged over 100 deals with other investors per year for over the last 5 years. We can straight up buy the deal if you have a wholesale under contract that you want to sell. If you need funding to finance a flip, or like you're doing a BRRRR strategy, we have funding available for you. If you're trying to wholesale a deal, we're doing JV wholesale deals with other wholesalers that, quite frankly, some of the deals we're putting together for a beginner or an intermediate investor, they'd probably be walking away from because we have systems and processes and we have buyers in place that are paying top dollar for these properties. So make sure you use this resource. And the best way to get and the easiest way is to just send us an email, deals@3doors.com. All right, back to the episode.
Was there like an example or like a story that you have where you just screwed something up? Pardon my French, but you just, like finally you were like, wait a second, I have to plan now. How did you get to that conclusion?
By mistakes, yeah, by a bunch of mistakes, but none of them were, I don't think, gargantuan. There was one though where the architect and engineer had actually missed the way this house was framed. All of the not floor, but the ceiling beams, they ran across to the, I don't know the lingo, okay, so bear with me here, but it was like they would, for the living room, the beams across the ceiling went like this way, and they just rested upon the load bearing wall, or just a wall. It wasn't necessarily supposed to be a load bearing wall, but and then in the next room they went this way and they just rested on this wall. And it was really odd, but apparently that's not uncommon for something built in like the 40s or something.
Okay.
So the architect and engineer missed this. I don't know if they just failed to go upstairs or something, go up in the attic and look. But when you look at it, you can tell they're just sitting there. Like they're not even like nailed or screwed in or anything. There's no hanging header. There was nothing. So whenever we took down a wall that was quote unquote not a load bearing wall, all of those things that had been leaning on that wall just flopped down, right? And so then the the drywall on the ceiling is all broken now because the beam is pushing them down, so it's cracking. I'm like, what the heck? That's not supposed to be a load bearing wall. But apparently in that house, nearly every wall was carrying the beams because they weren't anchored. There was no anchors. There was no screws. So it was the weirdest house ever. And that's an example of backtracking, because as soon as we took that wall down, oh crap, now we need a carpenter to come and make some hanging beams. And we needed them in 1, 2, 3 areas, 4 areas actually. So that we had to wait for him. We had to backtrack with our plans and submit those plans to Creve Corps.
Yeah, so then that might be a month and a half for permitting. And then and then all of a sudden you had your plumber and your HVAC guy, and you had your
now my whole schedule's off. Yeah.
You had all of them lined up. Now all of a sudden, hey guys, sorry, we're 2 months out. And then getting them back in to stop a different job with, okay, well, is Melanie truly ready now? Like a tug of war too. So so kind of missing a key step like that in the planning process, it's very possible it can cost you like 6 months. And do you remember about what the holding costs were on that one?
That was a Creve Corps property, a big one that they were over 500 a day. Yeah.
Yeah. So if it's do the math, 500 a day for 3 months to 6 months. I mean, it adds up quick.
Well, thankfully it didn't take 6 months or 3 months, but it did take several weeks because the carpenter was busy. He didn't plan on it. I didn't plan on it. Nobody planned on it.
Yeah. And I was talking worst case scenario, right?
Yeah. But it was a challenge, and it did cost me in the very beginning. And then that's when was after that where I definitely would meet the architect at the house and the engineer, and I'd be like, have you been in the attic yet? I need to know that you've been in the attic and you've seen the way that this house is put together. And so a good thing to write down is make sure your engineer goes up into the attic. So it just seemed pretty straightforward. It wasn't that complicated of a build, the building, but just different. It definitely pays off in the end to be extremely thorough in the beginning. And I'm not normally a detail person. I didn't like teaching, so I started to be an editor because I got hired, and they wanted someone with a teaching degree. And I realized I am not a detail person at all. Like, I don't see these missing commas and missing periods and all this stuff. And the grammar made sense to me. It's a good paragraph. It conveys the point. Let's go with it. And then I would get all this red dots and red lines all over my work all the time from the editor. So from my boss. So I realized quickly that I am not a detail-oriented person. And I've had to really fight against that with working with properties, because, you always need to keep the bottom line in your head, right? The bottom line is I'm here to make money. I'm not here to fall in love with this house, and it's not my baby. And I'm not here to just have fun with the contractors or, just enjoy this process. The process is enjoyable, but it also you have to be very thorough with every little thing. And that's honestly, that's hard for me. I have to really work at that. I have to really make myself slow down and work at that. So I did have a few of those backtracking incidents that caused me to really think and go, gosh, I got to do this differently. I got to do better at this.
Yeah, no, what's funny is we were just on our sales meeting with our acquisition team this morning. We were talking about a story of Kobe Bryant. There was a guy watching Kobe Bryant practice, and he was surprised. He was like, Kobe, why are you just focused on grade school basketball drills and you're doing them over and over thousands and thousands of times? Like why does at this time he was the best player in the world. He said, so why does the best player in the world focus this much on the details on these fundamentals? And he said, well, that's why I'm the best player in the world, because I'm so focused on these details, right? So like to get to that mastery level at anything, whether it's flipping houses or being a sports athlete, you name it, the details are what separates the boys from the men, so to speak.
Yeah.
So I absolutely love it. So let's get into, okay, so as far as the details go, so in the planning and the demo, you get your architect and kind of like your designer out there first. And then you also have some set contractors. If you didn't have like kind of set contractors, you're more in like the beginning phases. How would you work in someone that you kind of need to interview as well in this process? Like how does that fit?
Well, what I try to do is once I have the planning done, that means planning means I've got a detailed scope of work as well. And that's like excruciating for me, but I make myself sit down and I write out a as detailed as I can get. I count the number of outlets. I count the number of switches. I try to see which ones are three-way switches, and I try to record everything out. So every electrician has the same scope of work. And now they can notice something and I'll add that to my scope of work. Or they can say, Melanie, I don't think you really need this. And I can scratch it off, right? But at least I have a starting point. And at first, my starting point was not that detailed because, like I said, I work at that. Now I'm better at it, but they give me their bid based on that scope. So I usually get three bids. All three bids say the same, they're working off the same scope. Okay, so if I have to interview someone, that scope makes it so much easier because I can, walk them through it. We can talk. I can kind of assess their character while we're talking. I can make some, choices and everything about how I will go about working with them, like their personality and stuff like that, as I'm walking through with them. And then if I decide, okay, I'm going to go with these people, I want some references. And sometimes people can circumvent that and just give you their friends, right? But still, hopefully they're going to give you someone that they worked with before, and they can give you some good information on how the gentleman or gentle lady proceeds with her work, So interviews are better when you have a scope of work.
So just a little sidebar here, guys. For pro members in our online library, we actually have examples of scope of works. And the movers and shakers of the world are professional modelers. Don't create your own scope of work. Find someone that has one and use that as a template to modify it to your needs. Okay.
Yeah, so edit it.
Yeah, and you can edit it. You can see it as an example of like an existing one, and you can take that system and plug it into your own system. Okay, so just kind of like a little bit of a sidebar there. When you were doing, now that you know how to do it, do you have any kind of tips on the scope of work for someone that's a little bit more on the newer side?
Well, if you're on the newer side, if you just at least have something on a piece of paper that says, look, I'm going to need to change out. These are all those old brown outlets and brown cover plates. I know I want white. And so you just count like the living room and you put the number of plates and switches that you need. Dining room, you just go through the different rooms of the house and you put down what you need. Now, when you get into the kitchen, you may or may not know this yet, but if you don't know it, then the electrician should point out, well, hey, we're going to need a GFCI in the kitchen every so often along the countertop, And so, or they'll go into the bathroom and say, oh, you don't have a GFCI. Do you want a GFCI? I think you're going to need one to pass inspection. And you can say, yes, you just say yes to all their suggestions, unless it's crazy suggestions. But, and then you need a GFCI in the garage. Even if the building inspector doesn't say you need one, the buyer's inspector is going to say you need one. So I try to, meet those demands of the buyer inspectors, even if they're not even there yet.
Yeah, and what's interesting about doing it this way, guys, if you are getting 3 electricians' bids and all 3 of them tell you need something,
yeah,
probably need it, right? So you don't have to know everything as you get going on this. You can miss something like that, and if you're getting those 3 bids, it will what the code is, how to do it the proper way, will get flushed out and it'll come up for sure.
Yeah, and if you have someone who's saying something totally different than the other 2, then you might want to not use that person just because they're if they're way different, then you might be a little suspicious there. Because the code is the code, you don't want to go too far off of that. And most of them know the code. They've been doing this for years. And I would tell them, look, here's my scope of work. It's just a draft. What would you add to this? Or what would you take away from it? And so I get their input, and they basically help me build my scope of work. I know a little more now, but I still say that sometimes. I'll still say, what do you think I should add to this? And they like that because they feel like they're part of the team. They're not just coming in to do this work for you and you don't appreciate them. You appreciate their input, their knowledge, their skills, and you kind of try to draw them in to be a part of your team and sell them on you and working with you. So yeah, I like doing the bid process because I like meeting new people, and you never know who you're going to meet. You might meet someone that'll stay with you for 3 or 4 years.
So tell me more on you said sell them while working with you. What's like give me an example of that on how you do that with a contractor.
Well, a lot of the selling books I've read said, number one, you need to be extremely enthusiastic, like be more enthusiastic than other people. And then another book I have read by Chris Voss says you're 31% smarter when you're in a good mood. So if you greet a contractor, male or female, with positivity, hey, so glad you're here. Here's my scope of work. Well, let's take a walk through the house. You tell me what you would add to this. I value your expertise. And let's see what we can make happen here. Just throw it out there like, hey, I'm excited. This is going to be an awesome renovation, and I'd love you to be a part of it type. You don't say those words, but you give them that impression that you're going to be here. You're going to be having fun. You're going to be moving quickly. I try to talk quickly and walk quickly so that I let them know, I'm not here to lollygag. I'm not here just to laugh and joke with you. I do laugh and joke with them, but I do it quickly, if you know what I mean. If you talk faster, you come across more excited. You come across, and I always try to come across respectful. Sometimes I'll throw in a yes, sir, yes, ma'am, just to let them know I value them. I'm not a know-it-all. I don't know everything, and I want their input.